admire greatly. These two men have done more than virtually anyone else to make the internet and the web what it is today. And the one thing that I wanted to say, if I could, Corey, before we get into a more detailed discussion, it is to set the context for what I think the most important challenge facing all of us is. The internet is an empowering technology that is essential for the survival of democracy. It is now being challenged. There are more than a few governments around the world that are trying to change the governance and protocols that make the internet free so that it can be subjected to more controls. There are also corporate interests, some of them legitimate, that are sometimes pressed far beyond wise boundaries. Modern democracy arose in the wake of the printing press, which had characteristics similar to what we see on the internet today. Individuals had easy access. All they needed to do was learn to read and write. Printing presses were everywhere and inexpensive, and those who authored text containing their ideas were able to put them into circulation, and they spread much in the manner of a Google search today. Those ideas that attracted more resonance and agreement rose in prominence and attracted a greater audience still. And a dozen generations after the printing press, through the period we call the Enlightenment, the reawakening of the ancient dream of democracy led to a revolution worldwide that installed constitutional democracies. But this medium of the printing press was overtaken by the broadcasting media. And though there are many great people who work in broadcasting, the architecture of that technology was more centralized. Access was not available to individuals who did not have an enormous amount of money. Large corporations and governments and powerful interests were able to dominate the flow of ideas over the broadcast medium, both television and radio. And that is still the case. The internet is still in its early days. And as cheaper smartphones proliferate around the world, and as social networks spread throughout the planet, this new combination of technologies will once again make it possible for people, this time billions of people, to interact freely with one another and to lift up the better ideas for self-governance and the struggle against corruption and against violence and the struggle for the environment. We have to use the internet to stop global warming by spreading the ideas that can reduce the emissions of global warming pollution. But just as we have a climate crisis, we have a democracy crisis. And the solution is going to be found on the internet, and that again is why its freedom must be defended. So, Campesinos, defend the freedom of the internet.